It's always an utter delight to welcome Steve Bone to the Pompey Sound microphone. I can tell you, good listener, that Steve and I usually manage to spend 5 minutes putting the world completely to rights before we start talking about something even more important than the world, and that is Pompey.
Yes.
How are you feeling, Steve?
I'm feeling very happy because we don't need to put Pompey to rights because they've already put themselves to rights, haven't they? Or to right. Or
elegant.
They've done the job with two exactly the same as last year. I think with 2 games to spare, their fate is sealed for the year, and it's terrific, isn't it? I mean, I don't think too many people thought we'd get 6 points out of 6 over Easter.
No.
Because we haven't won 2 in a row very often. I think we won 3 in a row a little while ago when we beat Oxford, QPR and Cardiff or something. But don't think anybody. I think we thought we might take a big step nearer to safety over Easter with maybe 3 points out of 6 or 4. But I don't think anyone thought we'd get 6 points, and I'm pretty sure nobody predicted, unless you tell me that Mick Robertson or Dean Adams said it would be 5-3.
No.
Pompey.
Dean Adams always says 3-1 to Pompey, whoever it is.
Well, it was close. Yeah, it was a bit closer this time than usual. Yeah.
It could be the Crown and Sceptre's Sunday 11 versus Pompey, or Pompey versus Real Madrid. He'll still go 3-1 to Pompey. And somebody I know tends to go 1-1.
Yes, that'll be me.
That will be you.
And I think I might have done it again last week, did I? I think I said,
you did.
Let's hope we could nick a draw at Norwich.
You did.
But, it was funny because we won 5-3 at Norwich, and even that wasn't with it. You know, every time they got another one back, you thought, oh, here we go, we're going to blow this. But we didn't. And it felt like the pressure was off a bit after that, didn't it? And it that kind of took the edge off Monday a little bit. And we were all strolling up to Fratton Park on Monday thinking, oh, we're kind of almost there now.
Yes.
And we're not... Pompey are not very good when they're almost there and not quite as under pressure as they would have been otherwise. And it ended up being quite a nervous afternoon on Monday. And in fact, if we'd lost on Monday and then you look at the other results, we'd still be right in it, wouldn't we? You look at the teams with 49 points and they're still a bit worried, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, but we got the job done. So
I've got to describe the feeling to one of our partners at Pompey Sound, who happens to be not a football buff at all. But we use Pompey Sound as an excuse to drink real ale in the craft beer barn 50 yards from where he lives. It's a good excuse. But I'm going to have to describe the feeling to him, and I think you've just hit on it there. It's a bit like the feeling you have in your pit of your stomach at 11 o'clock on Christmas morning. You've opened all your presents.
Yes.
You've seen Noel Edmonds in the children's ward.
Yeah.
All you've got to look forward to is a tired version of Top of the Pops, a Bond film you've seen several times, and if you're lucky, Morecambe and Wise Christmas special. But there's a sense of anticlimax, isn't it?
You're just past that. You're just past the high point, aren't you? Yeah. Exactly.
And you're kind of hankering for the uncertainty, the excitement, the friction of
exactly.
Of disappointment.
But if offered. Yeah. But if offered, if you'd said a few games ago, do you want to be safe with 2 games to go, or do you want it to go to the last day? We'd all have pressed the button that said, please let us be safe before the last day.
There's that.
Because that can go either way.
I've decided to tell him it's a bit like, I imagine, a free-fall parachute jump. Because you spend minutes just hurtling through the air going, ah! And then you get close enough to the ground and you think, right, I better pull the parachute out now.
Yeah.
So you pull the ripcord and suddenly, boof, you're almost static. You're hanging there.
Yeah.
It's not what you paid your money for. You paid your money for the thrill.
Yes.
For the excitement. The sense of danger. The possibility of dying, I suppose.
Yes.
And now here you are.
And then the elation of not dying.
Yeah. You're going through the air at 10 mile an hour, with the wind going. And it's nothingness. I've got two games, and I don't know if I'm going to bother with them much. I'm going to go to Hull, of course.
But I've just been reading that it looks like we might take our biggest away following to Sheffield Wednesday, because we've been given a load more tickets. We could, if we sell out, and I don't think we have yet, but we could take 3,800 to Sheffield Wednesday, which for a team that's already safe is incredible, really.
Now
isn't it?
Takes some analysing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are they going for the shared celebration, I suppose, or being together, or being there.
Yeah,
I was there.
Bit of everything, really. I think it will be a celebration, won't it? Pompey take a good away following, whether they're at the top of the table, bottom, middle, anywhere, don't they? They've been known to take good followings to friendlies, so we shouldn't be surprised at it. But it's still quite. I don't think there's too many teams in the Championship that would sell even more tickets for an away game after they've declared they're safe.
I'd like to know who was that lone Pompey fan who turned up last summer in Albania, knowing full well that he wasn't going to be, or he or she wasn't going to be able to see them play, but just had to be there.
Yeah,
had to be within the proximity.
That's it.
of his team.
And it happened during. Didn't it happen during lockdown when games were behind closed doors? There was a few Pompey fans that somehow got around social distancing rules and just stood around outside away grounds where Pompey were playing.
Well, I saw on one bit of footage that bloke who owns the bookshop in Petersham. I hardly like to say his name because I think he's a bit questionable. But anyway, there he was outside at Peterborough, I think it might have been, or somewhere.
Yeah.
And he was outside and he had his bell. And it was 5-3, and he'd obviously had enough to drink, and he was just standing there, outside the ground, clanging away. Blimey! Okay.
It's funny, isn't it?
Takes all sorts.
It's almost a religion, isn't it? A religious following, a disciple.
It is. It's his Mecca.
You have to go and worship the ground that the gods are treading or something. I don't know. Yeah. But so well, fair play to all those making the trip to Sheffield. It could be one of those games, couldn't it? But brakes are off a little bit, the pressure's off. So who knows?
I'll just pass on.
We'll come to predictions later on.
Yeah, I'll pass on a little bit of office gossip. Our colleague Dan Shaw was going to Sheffield Wednesday. It's the one ground in the Championship he's yet to visit, so it was high on his list of things must do. But he's going to miss the game because he's doing the TV commentary on the Eubank versus Ben fight, which apparently has sold out over. It sold its 140,000 tickets. 140,000 people are going to see it.
Yeah,
there are 140,000 people on the waiting list for tickets, right?
Yeah. Surprised,
so,
actually,
that's a very well-attended event. I said to him, so you're not going to watch the game? He said, well, I'm going to have my phone on down by my leg. I'm going to be doing the commentary. And at the same time, I'm going to get in.
Anyone watching you back against Ben might get a bit of, and Lang's just gone through. It could get a bit confusing for people, couldn't it?
You would. It was that racing commentator who was commentating on a horse race on grandstand, and his horse was winning, and he had to keep it to himself. He had to not be extra excited that his horse was about to win the race, and he did. He pulled it off.
Yeah,
Glendenning or somebody his name was, something like that.
Right.
Should we better talk about Pompey a bit more?
I suppose so. We are still in the. We're not in the middle of July here, are we? There is still football to talk about. Yeah, and we should. Yeah.
So these games, would you, if you were John Messina, would you play your best starting 11, or would you give a couple of youngsters or people who've been on the bench often enough a run out?
I saw an interesting little debate on Twitter about this yesterday, which I didn't get involved in myself, but there was somebody saying, let's have a look at Blair and Gordon and Omani and people like that, and let's see in these last couple of games the people that haven't been playing. This could be a chance to just see what they can do. And a chap who I do follow on Twitter and know quite well, a lot of Pompey fans will know, called Anthony Hess, replied and said, I've been watching Pompey all season. I've been watching Pompey away from home all season, spent a lot of time and money and effort going to away games. There have been many where we've been hammered and we haven't had much fun. I'm going to Sheffield, it's 5 hours away. I want to see Pompey play their strongest team and try to win and have the best chance of winning. And I think that's a fair point, actually. And I don't think Mousinho will mix it up too much.
No.
I think we might see one or two changes. There's a lot of speculation about whether Lang and Shaughnessy will play much part. I think they will probably both want to, but I don't think he'll overdo it with either of them. You don't want another setback, do you, at this time you want to send them off for the little break, injury free, and so they'll come back ready to go in pre-season. So I don't think those two will play 90 minutes. There might be one or two surprises. We might see a Gordon start. We might see a Yengi or a Waddingham, although Waddingham's injured, I think, isn't he? So we probably won't see him. But I think the manager, being the manager, he's professional. He will want to get some points from these last two games. There's still the matter of where we finish in the league to be settled.
Do you happen to know what the responsibility of a club is to play their best available 11 players in any match?
There is a general responsibility, isn't there? And I don't know, I must admit, I don't know what the rules are, but I think even if you're at the end of a season, because I don't think either of our games affect top or bottom. Well, the Hull game could, of course.
Yeah, Hull could affect teams around Hull.
I don't think you're allowed to play a significantly weakened team in a game that could matter in terms of ups and downs. But by extension of that, I wouldn't think you're really allowed to play a seriously weakened team in any game in a league or cup. So there must be rules. I don't know how they measure that, because if he wants to bring in 5 who were on the bench last week who wants to start, who can say, well, that's a weakened team? How do you assess that? I'm sure there are rules and responsibilities. I don't think we'll see too many changes.
Living and loving the times we live in with football, it's now a rotation game. And Pompey do sometimes go unchanged if they've had a good win, and there's plenty of good reasons for that. But generally speaking, every time it's 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon, your phone tells you that there's 2, 3, 4 changes from the previous starting lineup. And sometimes that's down to injury, but other times it's down to fresh legs, it's down to selection matters, as the manager is often saying these days. So-and-so did not play for selection reasons.
Yeah, that's right. In other words, he didn't want him to play ahead of somebody else, And for example, we might see... Dazal didn't play on Monday, did he? Didn't start. Could easily start on Saturday, and that doesn't weaken the team at all. It's almost like for like, if you put him in place of Potts or Hayden, for example. Yeah. So that's the nature of the game these days, isn't it? You've got squads, and there aren't many clubs really that have got a first 11 that are all significantly stronger than those who could come into their place.
Not anymore. No, you're right.
There's a lot of like-for-like changes that teams can make, whether in the Premier League or down the leagues, or even in non-league. It's an 18-20 man squad game now, whereas when I first started watching the First Division in the early 80s, Aston Villa won it by using about 14 players all season, and 2 of them only played 6 games, sort of thing. So you had your 11 and you only changed it if you had to, but a bit different now. But there'll be some people in that Pompey squad who are champing at the bit to get into these last 2 games, because they need to prove themselves a bit. Some out of contract, there's some on loan who might be looking for a club in the summer and might want to come back. So there's a few considerations there for individuals and for the manager.
You've reminded me, the first league I remember, League Division 1, was won by Liverpool, I think in 1965 or 4 or something like that. And you're right, they only had, I think, a total of 14 players made appearances for them in that season. And on their books there were only about 15 players. And the reason I remember it is because they had all these players who played 42 games and 38 games and 42. The bloke down at the bottom played 0. And the other players had been transferred to Liverpool. That's the other information that we got in my Rothmans. Yeah. So they were transferred from Kilmarnock was one, and so on. Liverpool buying up players from Wrexham and what have you. The bloke at the bottom, who never played for them during that season, was transferred to Liverpool from Chichester. So I tried to look him up. Who is this guy? Is he still local? Are his family around? Did he get a medal?
Interesting, isn't it?
I know. Couldn't find him.
What a dream move, isn't it? Chichester to Liverpool.
The trial went dead before it began to smell of life. I only know his initial. I think it's something like B. Hodges. Transferred from Chichester to Liverpool.
I'll have to look him up now. Could be a story for the Chichester Observer here, couldn't there?
Good luck. I might revisit.
Yeah.
Where were we? You mentioned the name Dazelle. Pompey Sound wants to know what you think about the extension, the uptake of the 12-month extension on his contract.
Pleased and think it makes sense for him and for the club. I think he was one of those we brought in last summer, and initially people were thinking, oh, well, that's okay, he might do all right. Not sure if he's any better than what we've got or what we had. And probably after a few games, we were all still thinking the same thing. He didn't sort of show up all that well. I don't think he did much wrong, but he didn't sort of put his mark on the team particularly well early on. But he's one of a number of players who, over the course of the season, quite gradually and quite consistently, has got better and better, and has shown his worth more and more as the weeks have gone by. Both as a sort of holding midfielder, doing the dirty work, alongside Potts, or I think he's played a few games alongside Pack, and he would have played a few alongside Hayden as well. But also he's shown little signs of things going forward. He scored a couple of goals and created a couple of assists, I think, as well, hasn't he? So, very, very. I think you've got to. There will be some new faces coming in the summer. There probably won't be as many as there was last year, but the first thing you've got to do is you've got to tie down the dependable ones, the ones that you think can do a job for you again next time around, and maybe maybe you'd put him in the bracket of the ones who, if you're just looking a little bit higher in the table next time, if you want to be in the top half and not the bottom half, perhaps you want to be hovering around 9th or 10th instead of 18th, 19th, who are the players that can help you do that? And with a full season behind him now in the Championship and at Fratton Park, you would back Dazelle to be one of those to do that. So pleased to see that one over the line. Hopefully we'll see a few more deals done in the next couple of weeks.
Now, John Messino is ever the diplomat, isn't he? He's quite political, I think, and he's clever at that. I mean, he plays the grizzled old men of the FA like a piano, I reckon.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
and they admire him for it, frankly. But he's going to have to find a diplomatic way of saying, we don't really want to be promoted this season. We need one more season to season the squad.
Yes.
To bring the youngsters through up to the point where they are playing their relevant game, which might be Premiership football, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, that's it.
How do you say that to the fans? We don't want to go up. How do you?
Yes, we don't. You can't say it, can you?
But there are fans who are hungry for that. They want to win every game. They want to. They want to be in the Premier League, Premiership.
I'm glad. Yeah,
yesterday,
because this is an interesting. Now we are safe. It's an interesting debate. Where do fans see us being at this time next year, and where do they see us being in 2 or 3 years' time? Because you hear an awful lot of people who supported Pompey last time they were in the Premier League now saying, got no wish to return there, quite happy in the Championship, love this league, very competitive. If you go up to the Premier League, you're almost certain to come straight back down. The top 6 will be the top 6. You won't win a game between your first game and your 15th game, depending on who you're playing. But at the same time, there are a lot of fans, and there's probably an age thing. There's probably a lot of younger fans who haven't seen us in the Premier League or don't remember watching us in the Premier League, who are desperate to get there, and will think that now we've stayed in the Championship, the next aim should be, let's finish in the top 6 next year and see what happens. Gradual progression has got to be the way, hasn't it? Because you can't run before you can walk. If Pompey were to have an amazing season next season, finish 6th and sneak up in the playoffs, what on earth would happen the following season? You'd need a hell of a lot of investment very quickly, wouldn't you?
As usual, you make a very good point about then and now, because now you're dreaming of going to illustrious places like Brentford and Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa. Clubs who, when we were in the Premier League last, were down amongst the dead men. They were in the doldrums.
Way down, yeah.
Way down.
Yeah, it's a very different Premier League now.
It is.
To the one,
it is.
To the one we left.
Not at the very top, of course, but
no.
that's Liverpool for you.
I don't know if it is as appealing to people now. I think the Premier League generally has lost a bit of its... I'm sure to the 20 clubs who are still in it and all their fans, they all love it. And they don't want to be there unless you're stuck in the bottom three for the whole season, as our friends up the road have been. We probably don't enjoy it much then. But I think to everybody else who's not in the Premier League, you sort of look in from outside and think, well, it's not very interesting, is it? There's no title race this year. The most interesting thing they can find is how many teams will qualify for the Champions League and who's going to finish fifth and get into that and get into the other European things. I thought it was quite telling over Easter. All the Football League games and most of the non-league played on Friday and Monday. Saturday there was just the Premier League, and I switched on Soccer Special on Sky on Saturday afternoon just to see what was happening, and I think I lasted about 20 minutes because there was about 5 Premier League games on. Wasn't many goals in any of them. None of those games were of particular importance at the top or bottom, and I thought, well, there's nothing to see here. I went and mowed the lawn, which was much more enjoyable, much more
it's not the same,
useful.
is it? On a Saturday afternoon, if you haven't gone to the game, you want the television on and you want the Jeff Stelling to go over to some rabid local reporter called Tony, who is having an absolute frenzy because Chesterfield have just gone one down. That's what you want.
That's it. And there is, let's be honest, there is much more drama and interest for the neutral in all the other leagues, isn't there? Championship is fascinating because you still don't know who's going to... Well, we know which 2 clubs have gone up, but you've got the race for the playoffs now. You've still got the relegation pictures to be resolved. Same in League 1 and League 2. With my Sussex hat on, we cover obviously all the Sussex non-league teams. 2 of them, Eastbourne Borough and Worthing, are in National League South. It's the final day of the National South season on Saturday. There are 6 teams who could win the title on Saturday with 1 game to go. It's incredible, really. And there's stories like that all around. And I just think it's more interesting, really.
I know. You could have been Jeff Stelling, Steve, because I used to love it when he used to come out with things like... And that's only the 3rd time a player whose name begins with Z has scored a hat-trick in League 2 since Zbigniew Brzezinski was Chancellor of the Soviet Union. And it's fantastic. And we haven't got him now. They rotate it, and it's kids who don't have the Jeff Stelling.
No, nobody does it quite like him, do they? No, he was a one-off, and he was absolutely brilliant at it.
Oh, he was funny. He was funny.
And
knowledgeable.
Humour along with the knowledge was important.
When Chris Kamara corrected him about something, they cut back to Stelling and he just said, that is the low point of my career. Being corrected by Chris Kamara.
Great double act, those two.
I hope he's okay, Chris Kamara.
He's still getting around, I think, and doing some
struggle with it, hasn't he?
Like that.
I hope that's nothing to do with heading the ball.
No,
it's not, is it?
I don't think so. I don't know. But no, I think he's been well. I think he's had good treatment, and I think he's still doing the rounds, and he makes quite a few public appearances.
We've got Ian St John to thank for him, haven't we? Yeah, he spotted him playing for the Navy.
I think he did.
And being a typical old school manager, St John found out there was a game of football going on a Tuesday afternoon, and so naturally he went to see it. That's what football people are like.
Exactly.
And he saw Chris Kamara.
There's something to be had.
A teenager, and he thought, he could be all right, and so he bought him. I think the fee, they had to pay an extraction fee to the Royal Navy, Pompey. I think it's the last time this ever happened. I think they paid £500 for him.
Probably quite a lot in those days.
It probably was, to get his signature.
Some years later, we if it was 500, then some years later we got Guy Whittingham for £50 less than that from the army.
I didn't realise.
We paid the army
off.
£450, I think, for Guy.
That seems to be about the going rate then, is it? Is there a going rate if you're buying a service person?
I don't know how it works now, if it happens. It probably doesn't happen much now, does it? Players rarely come to sort of professional clubs direct from anywhere other than academies and so on, or non-league clubs. But there must be something in place mustn't there? For, because the services and others do have good football teams. There's some talent there. If you are Ian St John or the present day version of it, willing to go down to Burnaby Road on a Tuesday afternoon and have a look at somebody, might just be the next big superstar.
Do you remember the wrestler Pat Roach, who was in Alvida Zane Pet, the enormous guy? And I worked with him a little bit on some wrestling thing, and we got chatting, and he said, Portsmouth. He said, he said, I had a sort of a trial for Portsmouth. I said, I didn't know you were a footballer. He said, well, I wasn't. He said, but I was huge. and back then it counted for something, being 6'7" and
I suppose so, yeah,
21 stone. I said, what was your sport then? And he looked at me as if I was asking a daft question. He went, boxing? I said, were you a good boxer? He said, well, I was the Armed Services heavyweight champion 3 years in a row. And I thought, I'll bet you blooming were as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
I'd like to have seen him on a football pitch. He would have made a difference, being that.
Well, he could have, if he'd been around present day, he could have been one of our many centre-halves this season.
We're all right for centre-halves.
Everybody has got a game at centre-half, so he could certainly have done a job.
Well, pick up that ball and run with it then. Pompey and centre-halves, where are we at?
Well, I think we've potentially got about 7, haven't we, for next season?
I think you could go 10 if you've pushed your luck with what have we got? Hayward plays.
Shaughnessy.
Hayward can play centre half. Williams can play centre half. So I think we've got 9 or 10.
You've got Shaughnessy, who's looking fitter by the week, and hopefully he'll stay that way. Poole has had quite a good run, touchwood, since he came back in. He stayed fit, and he's looked pretty good to me. He's looked pretty solid. You got Matthews, the Aussie, to come back in pre-season. You've got Boat, who we haven't seen at all yet, who hopefully will be fit for pre-season. And there's a lot of talk about whether we might try and sign Atkinson, isn't there? Rob Atkinson, who's become a bit of a hero in recent weeks.
We want Atkinson. He's our sort of centre half, as is Matthews, who we've seen a little bit of, and we liked what we saw.
Yes. So you've got a good little selection there. We've still got Riley Towler as well. I'd be surprised if he doesn't move on in the summer, having kind of had indications that he has from the manager that he's just not going to get in the team. It's a shame for him, and he's given it a good run. He's really stuck away at it, hasn't he, here, and tried to get in the team, and he's said all the right things, and I'm sure he's trained well, but I think he'll do a very good job somewhere else. Perhaps he'll need to drop down to League One and play for one of the top teams there. But that still leaves you with sort of five good sort of centre halves to pick from.
It does.
We might move one on, and we might bring another one in or something over the summer. We don't know, but
John Messina himself, I reckon, could do the job if he in an emergency. He's playing in the Alan Knight charity match.
Yes,
and I reckon, I'm sure he's kept himself fit, and he knows which part of a pitch to stand on, which is 9 parts of the job of being a centre half. You talk about Regan Paul. The only time I worried about him injuring himself was when he went into those celebrations after scoring the 5th. Do you remember? He went absolutely potty.
He did a
calm down. He did the whole bit.
Yeah, just shake a couple of hands or something and trot back to the centre circle like they used to.
Well, no, go beyond the centre circle. You're a centre half, remember?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, keep going after the centre circle.
Keep going. Go past the halfway line and keep going.
Somebody said it reminded them of, going back a few years, it reminded them of when Jack Watmore, who was out for a long time with a similar injury, did his ACL, might have done it twice, and then he came back and he scored a goal at Carlisle, and he was not known for scoring goals. He didn't often get anywhere near a goal, but he scored a goal, and then he ran over to the Pompey fans who were at the side of the ground, and attempted a knee slide himself, and fell flat on his face, but people were more worried about injuring his knee again. Really, I don't think I've ever been capable of doing a knee slide.
I've never tried.
Wasn't done then, was it, in our day?
No, I think I may have tried what Eric Cantona perfected, which was the hands on hips, arrogant. That is what I do.
Yeah,
I think I may have done a little bit of that.
Look at me, I've just scored.
Kissing the badge and. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got a bit out of control.
I think I told you before, when I was a kid, I went to see Chelsea training, and it was in the days of men called Peter Osgood and Hutchinson and so forth. And after the training session, which was headed up by their manager, Dave Sexton, Sexton went off and left the players out there with a few knackered old footballs.
Yeah.
And they practiced goal celebrations. unsupervised.
Oh dear.
And Osgood was showing Hutchinson how to do his trademark punch in the air.
Right.
Which I've tried, and it's very difficult to do. If you can, if anybody who's familiar with that goal celebration,
I do remember.
Alan Shearer was really boring, wasn't he? Right hand, slightly in the air.
Yeah.
Come on, Alan.
Yeah.
Go
you can do better than
bonkers,
that.
please.
Yeah. No, it's become quite an art, though, hasn't it? And I think every forward player who thinks they're going to score a goal has probably got a little plan.
Yes.
For what they do, you get the,
Is it a shame that they don't let them take their shirt off anymore? Because they used to have T-shirts with interesting things printed on them, didn't they?
I mean, I do think it's daft that they get booked for it. Really, I don't really see why that should be a bookable offence. Well, I don't really understand why that was stopped.
Possibly really. Because of the sloganising.
Yeah, maybe.
Because you can't tell if it's written in Spanish. You can't tell what it says, so you can't censor it.
No, I suppose that could be abused.
It could be political, or it could be commercial.
Yeah, maybe that was why. Although you can still, if you score in the 87th minute and you haven't already been booked, you can still risk it, can't you? You can still do it.
Oh yeah. Worth a booking almost.
And some still do. Yeah.
But, that guy, who was the guy who got red carded after the game for doing a victory dance in front of the Milton end?
Yeah, that was.
He didn't make it for the second the return fixture, did he?
It was away to Watford, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Watford.
That he got sent off. It was Barr. I think,
that's right. You are good, Bone. You are bloody, really good. I knew you said bloody. Then you can't say bloody.
Can't say that one.
No.
I know these things sort of do stick.
If I'd been goaded by a section of the crowd, though, I think I would be tempted to do a victory dance in front of them if I just denied them going home and enjoying their fish and chips. I think I would.
You can see why I did it.
One back at you. I think somebody had goaded him in the crowd, I suspect.
And
he took it personally.
I think so.
How can you not? You're a person.
But he then had Terry Devlin running after him and threatening to chop him down, I think, so that put him off. But sadly, he was nowhere to be seen on Monday.
He was a big lad. I don't think Devlin would have lasted long.
No, maybe not, actually, no. I do, but I think Pompey fans have long memories, and if he had turned up on Monday, even as a substitute warming up before the game, I think he would have been reminded of what Pompey fans thought of it. And did you see Sadie did a little fortnight dance? He did the same little dance.
I did. Yes, I did.
Which was a nice touch.
Yes, I did.
And by the way, talking of Sadie, just before we finish, I must talk of the highlight of Monday's
Go on,
game.
I know what you're going to say. Go on.
Injury time.
Yeah.
Running down the clock. It was pure theatre.
It's why he's on the pitch. To hold the ball at the corner flag.
A lot of it was down in the corner near me. The front corner.
Yeah, go on.
And Matt Ritchie, absolutely knew what he was doing. He was directing. He was directing the time wasting, basically.
Yes.
He was telling Sadie exactly where to stand, what to do.
Yes.
Devlin got involved in it as well, and you could see the Watford players were getting more and more agitated. I think one of them got booked halfway through.
Well, that played into our hands because they encroached the 10 yards. That's right, 9 metres that you're supposed to. So that suited us fine because we're not going to take it until they've gone back 9 yards, and we're entitled to do that.
I mean, it was the sort of thing that if we had needed a goal and they'd been doing it, we'd have been furious and we'd have been saying, "Oh, this should be outlawed" and everything. But actually, because we were doing it, it was very funny, and it was great, sort of unscripted drama, really.
Yes.
And it was after a not a particularly great game. It wasn't a classic game, was it? I thought that was great, and it paid off and it worked. And I thought Matt Ritchie sort of earned his money for the day in that 10 minutes alone, really.
Does he ever stop running?
It was good.
He's 35 and he is bombing along at 25 mile an hour into the 90th minute. He's still bombing. He's still chasing down defenders who are trying to play it out from the back.
He must be
like
one of
his
the
life
fittest in the
depends
squad.
on it.
Yeah, great example to the younger players as well, isn't he? You can
Absolutely.
see him, if he thinks that one of them is not pressing enough or not pressing in the right place, he'll be on at them. He'll be in there. A good captain, a good choice as captain, I think. Well, since Marlon was left out of the team. So.
I know your answer to this, and everybody listening knows your answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway because it's a good question. Are we going to get another season out of Matt Ritchie?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because he's so fit, I think you can almost knock 5 years off his age because of his fitness. I think you can, you know, is he 35 now? I think
so. Yeah,
definitely another season in him. He won't play every game. He might not even be in the starting 11 at the start of the season, but I think he's got a part to play, especially in the home team. You know, we've talked, haven't we, about whether Pompey might need to play a different team or line up or formation away from home, and I still think they might and should think about it. I certainly would have him in the home 11, pressing and getting the crowd G'd up and everything else.
Well, the second game I ever got taken to was Stamford Bridge, and it was Chelsea-Stoke, and Stanley Matthews played for Stoke. And I couldn't work out, being a kid, what all the fuss was about. It was that he was 49 years of age. But I watched him from time to time during the game, because I was neither a Chelsea fan nor a Stoke fan. No. And he basically didn't break into a run at all. He just stood with his heels on the touchline. He didn't have a sprint at all. I think he ghosted round a couple of times, but that was different then. The game was very different, very, very different. Yeah, and this press thing.
Yeah, that has changed it, hasn't it?
It's changed the game so hugely as a spectacle.
I mean, 24 years ago, when we had a season out of Robert Prozinecki, he didn't run much because he didn't need to.
No.
He stood in the centre circle, got the ball, did what he wanted with it, played a pass, did a little step over and beat somebody else and took a defender out of the game, and then played a 30-yard pass into Peter Crouch to go through and score.
Yes. His drag
it'd be
back.
Interesting to see if he. Yeah.
Interested to see.
Interested to see if you put him into at that stage of his career, if you could somehow put that player into a championship team now, would he still be able to have the same influence? I'm not sure he would, really, because of the way the game has changed. I'd like to see it tried, though.
I would. I apologise about my phone going off. It was a call from Southampton.
Was it, or?
No, it was a call from Southampton. I assume it was a call centre random call, like you get loads of, don't you? I do, anyway.
I don't know. I have heard they're ringing round seeing if they can find a new manager for maybe they've got down to you in the list.
A new squad, I think they need.
They need something, don't they?
I can play it out from the back.
They can't.
Who am I kidding? Anyhow, I don't think there's much point detaining you with predictions unless you want to give us your time-honoured 1-1 draw at Sheffield Wednesday.
I've been thinking, I don't need to predict a draw, do I? I could predict another famous away win. We might go there and win 3-1. We might go there and lose 4-0 because the pressure's off and we might take it a bit lightly. But I think we might go and get a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
You're going to go for the 1-1 draw?
Just because I can.
Because I can.
Which wouldn't be a bad result.
Absolutely.
Really. Keep us well clear of those strugglers below us.
As ever, Steve, nice one. Thank you very much indeed for your time and your intelligence and your good humour.
Thank you. Thank you for yours.
Talk to you very soon.
Look forward to it.